the last favorite song. I never thought there would come a day when I'd hear the words, "I think I'm falling for you," beside a worn-out vending machine on the 3rd floor of a dormitory. But college life clearly enjoys mocking me. Tristan still had his arms wrapped tightly around me, his face buried against my neck. His warm, trembling breath on my skin left my mind completely numb. "What did you just say?" I whispered. Tristan let out a tired laugh. "I know." He squeezed his eyes shut. "Terrible timing." "No. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't hallucinating from sleep deprivation." This time Tristan laughed a little quieter, but I could still feel how tense he was. Waiting. Afraid. Damn. My heart ached just from that. I gently pulled back to see him more clearly. Tristan's eyes were still red. His lashes still wet. Beautiful to a dangerous degree. "You don't have to say it back." He spoke before I could open my mouth. "I mean it. I just didn't want to keep lying." "Tristan, you don't owe me anything." I hated that he said that. Hated the way Tristan always braced himself to be left behind. As though he had long grown used to people walking away. I reached up and touched his cheek. "Look at me." Tristan slowly raised his eyes. "I've never met anyone like you." The corner of his mouth trembled faintly. "Is that a compliment or a warning?" "Not sure yet." Tristan let out a hoarse laugh. And God, I loved that laugh so much it was maddening. I took a deep breath. "I don't want to rush things." The flash that crossed Tristan's eyes made my heart clench immediately. "Not because I don't want to," I said quickly, "but because I want this to be real." He looked at me for a few seconds, then whispered, "Okay." The distance between us was very small. Small enough that I could have kissed him again with ease. But instead, I simply pressed my forehead to his. "You deserve to be loved gently," I said softly. Tristan closed his eyes, and I swear I felt him shiver. The next 2 weeks were the most dangerous stretch of my life, because Tristan started openly flirting with me everywhere. Every single place. "You're doing this on purpose, aren't you?" I hissed when Tristan sat down beside me in the study room. That shirt." Tristan looked down at the wide-neck black knit sweater he was wearing. "What about it?" "You know exactly what." He smiled very slowly. "The bastard." "Leo." Tristan propped his chin in his hand and looked at me. "If you keep staring at my collarbone like that, I'm gonna think you want to lick it." I nearly died on the spot. 2 girls at the table in front spun around and stared at us like they were watching a live sitcom. "Tristan." "What?" "I'm just communicating honestly." "I hate you." "That's not true." The worst part was, he was always right. By the end of November, nearly everyone in our friend group knew about it. Or more precisely, they knew that Tristan was going crazy over me. "I've never seen that guy look at anyone the way he looks at you," Mason said while helping me hang posters for the art club. "What way?" "Like you're the last favorite song left in the world." I immediately threw the roll of tape at him. "You're being way too sentimental." "Not as sentimental as Tristan walking 10 minutes in the rain just to bring you coffee." "He only did that once." 3 times. I went quiet. Mason stared at me for a moment and then burst out laughing. "Oh my God. What now? You're in love with him." The words hit me square in the chest. I opened my mouth to argue, but no sound came out. Because the problem was, Mason was right. Damn it all. I was in love with Tristan. Not the fleeting crush kind, but the kind of feeling that made me instinctively search for Tristan first in any crowd. The kind that made me save every one of his voice messages just because I liked the sound of his laugh. The kind that made me remember the way Tristan always touched the small of my back lightly whenever he passed by. Dangerous, really. That evening, I found Tristan in the old music room at the back of the arts building. He was sitting alone at the piano. The yellow light draped over his perfectly angled face in a way that was almost irritating. "I figured you'd be here," I said. Tristan turned and smiled the moment he saw me. Some smiles are very small, but they're enough to completely soften a person. "Hey!" I sat down beside the piano. "Are you writing music?" "Trying to." "New piece?" "Yeah." Tristan played a few wandering notes and then asked quietly, "Are you scared?" "Of what?" "Of us." I was quiet for a few seconds. Then honestly, "Yes." Tristan nodded as though he'd expected it. "Me too. But I think—" I looked at him. "Maybe the good things are always worth being scared of." The look in Tristan's eyes softened completely. "Leo." "Come here. That sounds like the opening of an adult film." Tristan laughed. "I'm trying to be romantic." "Sorry." I stepped closer to the piano, and the moment I was close enough, Tristan pulled my hand. I lost my balance and tumbled down onto his lap. "Tristan," he burst out laughing. I genuinely hate you. You're blushing. Because you're a menace to society." "Fair." I was about to stand up when Tristan wrapped his arms around my waist. Gently, but enough to send my heart into chaos. "Don't go," he said softly. The room fell into an unusual stillness. I looked at Tristan. We were close enough that all I had to do was tilt my head and our lips would meet. And this time I was the one who kissed him first. Tristan went still for a second, then responded almost immediately. The kiss was deeper and warmer than before. His hands tightened lightly at my waist and I had to grip his shoulders to keep my balance. A chaotic burst of piano notes rang out when my foot accidentally hit the keys. Tristan laughed right in the middle of the kiss. "Terrible," he murmured against my lips. "I'm addicted to you." My heart completely melted. "Then keep being addicted." Tristan's gaze darkened immediately. "Oh," he said, his voice dropping low. "You can't say things like that when you're sitting in my lap." My face burned. "Jesus Christ." "Leo." "What?" "I'm trying to behave. Doesn't seem to be working." Tristan laughed and rested his forehead against my shoulder. And right in that moment, his phone rang. Again. "Ethan." The smile on Tristan's lips vanished. And in my chest, everything went cold. I began to hate the name Ethan. Not in an ordinary way, but in the way where just seeing it light up on Tristan's screen made my stomach clench immediately. The small music room suddenly felt suffocating. Tristan stared at the vibrating phone in his hand. Once, twice, 3 times. "Decline it," I said quietly. Tristan swallowed. "Yeah." But he didn't decline it right away, and that hurt more than I wanted to admit. Tristan finally pressed decline and turned the phone face down on the piano. The air between us shifted slightly after that. Not badly. It just felt heavier. "I'm sorry," Tristan said quietly. "You don't need to apologize because your ex called." "He's not my ex anymore." The way Tristan said it so quickly sounded more like a reminder to himself than something said to me. I looked at him for a few seconds, then asked the thing I didn't truly want to know. "Do you still love him?" Tristan was silent. And God, that silence nearly killed me. Finally, he leaned his head against my shoulder. "Not the way I used to. Not the answer I wanted. But an honest one." I respected that more than any comfortable lie. "Was he your first love?" I asked. "Yeah." Tristan gave a faint smile. "I met Ethan in freshman year. He studies law, 2 years older than me." He turned the silver ring on his finger. "He was the first person who made me feel like being gay wasn't something to be ashamed of." My chest tightened. "I imagine that's hard to forget." "Yeah." "So why did you break up?" Tristan was quiet for a long time. So long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he said very softly, "Because loving someone who hates themselves is exhausting." I looked at Tristan. He was still looking down, dark hair falling over his eyes. He said that being with me always felt like holding someone back from the edge. Tristan's voice didn't shake, but somehow that was what hurt more. I didn't know how to let someone love me without wearing them down. Damn. I reached out and gently touched his face, making Tristan look at me. "Listen to me." Those blue-gray eyes slowly lifted. "You are not a burden." Tristan smiled sadly. "Leo." "I mean it." I held his face a little firmer. "Don't let someone who hurt you decide your worth." Tristan looked at me for a long time. That look sent a sharp ache through my heart. Do you always say things this dangerous? He whispered. The kind that make people want to love you even more. My face went hot immediately. You really have no sense of timing.
I'm coping.
I laughed helplessly and pressed my forehead to his. You idiot. Yeah. Tristan closed his eyes. But you're idiot. My heart was officially beyond saving. December arrived with the season's first snowfall. Hudson State was breathtakingly beautiful in winter. Christmas lights strung the length of the campus. Cafe windows fogged with steam. Students in thick wool coats rushing through the biting cold. And Tristan absolutely loved winter. Do I look like a character from a holiday romance film? He asked, spinning in a circle through the snow-dusted courtyard.
No.
Tristan gasped dramatically. Brutal. I was going to say you look like the reason the main character ruins their life. He froze for a second, then laughed so hard he nearly slipped on the snow. I like that better. I watched Tristan run back and forth through the courtyard like a hyperactive child and felt something in my chest go completely soft. Maybe this was the most dangerous thing about love. Not the kisses, but the moment you look at someone and think, I want to see them happy for a very long time. Leo. I barely had time to look up before a snowball hit me square in the face. 3 seconds of dead silence. Tristan slowly lowered his hand. Oops. I smiled very slowly. Oh, you're done for. Tristan screamed and bolted immediately. We chased each other all across campus like two lunatics. Tristan was laughing nonstop, hair wild, cheeks flushed red from the cold, and I had never seen him so alive. Eventually, I caught Tristan behind the library. He was pinned against a snow-covered brick wall, breathless from laughing too hard. Caught you. I surrender. I shoved a handful of snow down the back of his collar. Tristan shrieked. Leo. I call that justice. You're a psychopath. Coming from the person who sat on the railing of the 6th floor? Tristan laughed and then suddenly pulled me in by my collar. The space between us was suffocatingly close. I should get back at you, Tristan murmured. But you're looking at me too handsomely right now. I rolled my eyes. You flirt even when you're hypothermic? That's a survival skill. I was about to reply when Tristan suddenly fell quiet. He studied me for a few seconds. Then very softly, Thank you. For the snowball?
No.
Tristan's gaze softened. For making this year worth remembering. My heart skipped completely out of rhythm. I stopped thinking. I kissed him right there in the middle of the snowfall. Tristan immediately pulled me closer, his cold hands wrapping around my waist. Snow fell in our hair and melted on the skin of our necks. Everything around us blurred. Only Tristan remained. Only his cold lips and his faintly trembling breath. Until, Tristan, we jolted apart. A tall young man stood a few meters away, his face pale. Blonde hair, black leather jacket, and eyes looking at Tristan with a pain so raw that I knew immediately who it was. Ethan. The moment Tristan saw Ethan, his entire body went rigid. I felt it clearly through the hand still resting at my waist. The air in the courtyard suddenly turned colder. Snow still fell. Students still laughed and talked somewhere far away. But my world seemed to shrink down to just 3 people standing frozen beneath a golden street lamp. Ethan was a different kind of handsome than Tristan. Sharp, mature, put together to the point of almost seeming cold. And the way he looked at Tristan, God, that was not the gaze of someone who had stopped loving. Hi, Ethan said first, a slightly rough voice. It took Tristan a few seconds to respond. I stood beside them like a supporting character in a scene I had no desire to be in. Ethan finally looked over at me. His eyes paused on Tristan's hand, which was still gripping my coat. A very quick blink. Pain. Then gone. So, Ethan gave a thin smile. This is Leo. My heart dropped a beat. Tristan had told him about me. Somehow that made everything even more tense. Yeah, Tristan answered quietly. Ethan nodded slowly. He's better looking than I imagined. Okay. I spoke up before things could get any more surreal. I feel like I've accidentally walked into an HBO drama. Annoyingly, Ethan actually laughed at that. Fair. Tristan was still silent. I glanced at him, and for me, that sent an odd ache through my chest. I just came to return the hoodie, Ethan continued, holding out a small paper bag. And a few things still at yours. Tristan took it in both cold hands. Thank you. Sure. A pause stretched between them. Painful. Awkward. Like two people standing in the ruins of something that had once been beautiful. Finally, Ethan looked at Tristan for a long time and asked, "Are you okay?" Such a simple question. But I watched Tristan nearly hold his breath. "I'm trying." Ethan smiled very sadly. "Sounds like you." My chest constricted. Damn. I didn't want to feel jealous of someone who still cared for Tristan with such quiet tenderness. That made everything so much harder. Ethan looked at me one more time. "Take care of him." I went still. Tristan immediately spoke. "Ethan, it's okay." Ethan smiled faintly. "I'm just being honest." And then he turned and walked away into the snow. No drama. No lingering. Somehow that was more painful than any argument would have been. Tristan stood motionless for a long time. Until I gently called, "Hey!" He blinked as though coming back to himself. "Sorry." "Don't apologize. I just..." Tristan looked down. I didn't think seeing him would be that hard. I watched Ethan's figure disappear at the end of the snow-covered path. Then asked the thing I was most afraid to ask. "Do you want to go back to him?" Tristan immediately turned to face me.
No.
Said so quickly I almost couldn't believe it. "Leo," he stepped closer. "I swear. But you still love him." Tristan was silent. And this time I didn't look away from his eyes. "Feelings don't disappear that fast," Tristan said very softly. "But that doesn't mean I want to go back." A dull ache settled in my chest. Not because of the answer, but because I understood it. There are people who were once your whole world. In the end, they still leave a mark. "Are you angry?" Tristan asked quietly. I exhaled.
No.
Half a lie. I wasn't angry at Tristan. I just hated that I wasn't the first person to make him love this deeply. Stupid. "I don't know how to compete with a memory," I admitted. Tristan's expression softened. "Leo, I know it sounds childish."
No.
Tristan stepped right in front of me. "It sounds like someone who's afraid." I gave a dry laugh. "Wow, thanks, TikTok therapist." But Tristan didn't laugh. He just looked at me very carefully. "He made me happy once," Tristan admitted. "But you," his voice grew quieter. "You make me want to have a future." My heart nearly stopped. Tristan raised his cold hand and touched my cheek lightly. "I never planned for life this far ahead until I met you. Damn it all." I pulled him into my arms almost immediately. Tristan let out a shaky exhale and held me back tightly. "I don't want to lose you," he whispered in my ear. "Then don't disappear." "I'm trying." I closed my eyes, held Tristan close in the biting winter cold. And for the first time, I began to understand how terrifying it is to love someone who has already been broken. You're always afraid that one day they'll return to the place that hurt them. That night, Tristan slept in my room for the first time. Nothing more than sleep. Nothing beyond that. It was just that after seeing Ethan, neither of us wanted to be alone. Mason was remarkably gracious. The moment he saw Tristan walk in, he pointed straight at me. "I don't exist." Then he grabbed his laptop and vanished in under 10 seconds. "I love your roommate," Tristan said. "I think he just loves the drama." Tristan laughed softly and sat down on my bed. There was something very intimate about seeing him here. My sweater, my toothbrush, the scent of my shampoo in Tristan's hair after he'd showered. Dangerous, really. Around 2 in the morning, neither of us had slept yet. Tristan was lying on his side facing me, the pale yellow glow of the nightlight making his face look softer. "Leo?" If you hadn't," Tristan hesitated. "If you hadn't come up to the rooftop that night, what would have happened?" I looked at him for a moment. Then honestly, I don't like thinking about that. Tristan was quiet. "Me neither." The space between us was very small. I reached over and gently pushed the hair out of his eyes. Hey, I'm glad you're still here. Tristan's expression wavered. Then he took my hand and pressed it to his lips. A very small kiss on my fingertips, but enough to make my heart go completely soft. I think, Tristan whispered, I'm starting to believe that staying is a good idea. I woke up at 7 in the morning with Tristan asleep in my arms. For the first 3 seconds, my brain stopped working entirely. Then the memories of last night came back. Ethan, the snow, the kiss beneath the street lamp, and Tristan lying beside me now, his dark hair tangled against the pillow, one hand still lightly holding my shirt, as though even in sleep he was afraid I might vanish. Damn, my heart went completely soft. I had never been the type who liked too much closeness. Even in past relationships, I always needed my own space. But with Tristan, I could lie like this for hours just listening to the sound of his breathing. Dangerous, really. I was watching Tristan too carefully when he stirred slightly. His voice was hoarse and thick from sleep, devastatingly attractive. I immediately looked away like a high schooler. Morning, Tristan mumbled, eyes still closed. Morning. He slowly opened his eyes, and the moment he saw me, Tristan smiled. The first morning smile I had ever received from him. Small, but so gentle it sent a sharp ache through my heart. You're staring at me? Tristan said in his still drowsy voice. I wasn't. Leo. Okay, maybe. The corner of Tristan's mouth curved upward. Goo. I'll throw you out of my room. No, you won't. He burrowed closer under the blanket. I'm very comfy right now. I laughed softly and absent-mindedly tucked his hair behind his ear. That moment was peaceful to the point of being almost frightening, because I was getting used to it far too quickly. Used to having Tristan beside me. Used to someone looking at me as though I were the safest place they'd ever found. I have a confession, Tristan said suddenly. Last night I almost cried when you gave me a new toothbrush. I went still for a few seconds. What? Tristan pulled the blanket up over half his face. It's stupid. No, why? He was quiet for a moment, then laughed quietly. No one had ever made me feel like I was expected to stay. Damn. I immediately pulled the blanket away from his face. Don't say things like that right after waking up. Why not? Because my heart is fragile. Tristan burst out laughing. And God, I was completely addicted to that sound. 1 week before winter break, the whole campus was nearly losing its mind. Students rushing everywhere to finish final projects. Coffee shops packed 24/7. And me surviving on caffeine and desperation. Tristan wasn't faring much better. I hate the harmony professor, he groaned, pressing his face down onto the library table. I think you hate all professors. Fair. I handed him a latte. Drink. You're feeding me like a stray cat. And you're behaving exactly like one. Tristan laughed softly and looked up to drink the coffee. I watched his lips touch the lid of the cup for a beat too long. Tristan immediately caught my gaze. Leo. You're having dirty thoughts in the library. I nearly dropped my pen. Keep your voice down. The girl at the table next to us turned to look at us with full judgment. Tristan bit his lip to hold back laughter. I love flustering you. I'll block you. Then who will kiss you when you're stressed? Shit. Exactly. The worst part was that he was right. The night before winter break began, Hudson State held its annual Christmas festival in the center of campus. Lights strung everywhere. Soft jazz drifting through the cold air. A small temporary ice rink set up in the middle of the courtyard. I am going to die, I announced, staring at the rink. Tristan was standing beside me drinking hot chocolate. Drama queen. I can't skate. I can. Then why are you smiling like that? Because I can. 10 minutes later, I was genuinely clinging to Tristan like a panicking koala. Don't let go of me. I feel like you're just using this as an excuse to hold me. I am surviving. Tristan laughed so hard he nearly pulled us both down onto the ice. Infuriating. Even in a thick wool sweater and a messy scarf, he was unfairly beautiful. Okay. Baby steps, Tristan said, holding both my hands. Trust me. I don't trust anyone who put me in shoes with blades. Those aren't blades. Deadly sliding instruments. A couple glided past us with impressive skill. I looked at them, then looked at myself clinging to Tristan's coat like a creature just learning to walk. Humiliating. Tristan laughed until his face went red. Not at all. Yes, it is. Leo. I think this is the most endearing moment of my life. I froze. And at that exact moment, I actually slipped. Oh, sure. Tristan immediately pulled me back before my face hit the ice. The result was, we both fell together. I landed on top of Tristan in the middle of the rink. 2 seconds of silence. Then he laughed first. His laughter rang out beneath the Christmas lights and the soft notes of a winter melody. I looked at Tristan beneath me. Cheeks flushed red from the cold, eyes bright and alive with laughter. And suddenly, everything became very clear. I loved him. No more doubt. Not a crush. Not infatuation. But a feeling so deep it made me want to hold on to every moment like this forever. Tristan was still laughing when he noticed I had gone quiet. He looked at me. What is it? I swallowed, my heart beating hard enough to hurt. Damn, I was about to say it. And the most frightening thing was, I had never been more certain of anything in my life. I said, I love you to Tristan while both of us were lying flat on our backs in the middle of an ice rink like two absolute fools. No plan.
No preparation.
The words simply left my chest faster than thought. I love you. Everything around us seemed to slow. The Christmas music faded. The yellow lights blurred behind falling snow. Tristan lay beneath me, completely still. And for one terrible second, I thought I had just destroyed everything. Wow, he breathed very quietly. Yeah. I laughed from sheer panic. I just thought the same thing. Tristan was still staring at me. Those blue-gray eyes trembled faintly, like the surface of water that had just been touched. Leo. I know it sounds a bit crazy. I swallowed. Maybe too fast. But Tristan pulled me down and kissed me before I could finish. The kiss was strong enough that I nearly forgot we were lying in a public place. Someone wolf whistled from around the rink. I heard someone shout, "Let's go gaze," somewhere in the distance. But Tristan kissed me like nothing else mattered anymore. When we pulled apart, both of us were breathless. Tristan pressed his forehead to mine. Don't apologize for loving me, he whispered. My heart ached. I'm not apologizing. Good. The corner of Tristan's mouth trembled. Because I love you like it's making me lose my mind. Damn. I smiled like an idiot right there on the ice. And so did Tristan. Winter break came faster than I expected. Campus gradually emptied as students wheeled their suitcases out of the dorms. Snow blanketed every path around Hudson State, turning everything into cold, white silence. I hated the thought of being away from Tristan for 2 weeks. You look like you're going off to war, Mason said, watching me sit in the room clutching my phone.
I'm suffering.
You're just going to miss your boy. Exactly. Tristan was heading back to Chicago to see his mother. I was flying back to Portland to be with my family. The thing was, Tristan was deeply anxious about going home. Your dad still won't talk to you? I asked while the two of us sat outside the train station near campus. Tristan shook his head slightly. He'll be there for Christmas. He smiled bitterly. So it'll probably be pretty awkward. I looked at him for a moment and then took his hand. I hate that someone makes you feel like you need to apologize for existing. Tristan's expression softened. I'm fine. Liar. Tristan laughed quietly. Then he held my hand tighter. I'll miss you. I'll miss you too.
No.
Tristan tilted his head and looked at me. I mean, I'll really miss you. In a pathetic way. I laughed. You say that like we're breaking up. Don't joke about that. The smile on my lips disappeared almost immediately, because Tristan looked genuinely frightened. Hey! I pulled him closer. Nobody's breaking up with anyone. Tristan was quiet for a moment, then gave the faintest nod. Damn. Sometimes I forgot how deeply afraid Tristan was of being left behind. I love you, I said again, just to watch the tension in his eyes ease. And God, I could become addicted to the feeling of helping someone heal. The first few days in Portland felt strange. My family wasn't bad. My mom hugged me the moment I stepped off the plane. My little sister Sophie immediately asked, "Do you finally have a boyfriend?" I nearly choked. "What? You look like someone who's been kissed regularly." Kids these days are terrifying, but what surprised me most was, I thought of Tristan in every small moment. When I saw someone playing guitar on the street. When I drank a coffee that was too bitter. When I lay awake at 2 in the morning and no longer heard his voice messages drifting from the bed beside mine. Long-distance love, even 2,000 kilometers, turned out to hurt for real. On the night of the 23rd of December, Tristan called me by video just before midnight. He was sitting outside on the porch, wearing a gray hoodie and the black wool scarf I had once teased as too boyfriend-coded. "Are you okay?" I asked the moment I saw his eyes were a little red. Tristan smiled faintly. "Caught me, did you?" "Tristan." He leaned his head back against the wall behind him. "I had a fight with my dad." My heart sank. "What did he say?" Tristan was quiet for a moment, then smiled thinly. He asked why I couldn't just live normally. The blood in me nearly came to a boil. "Fuck him." "Lau."
No.
Seriously. I held the phone tighter. Nobody has the right to make you feel like there's something wrong with you just because of who you love. Tristan looked at me for a long time through the screen, his eyes tired, but softening little by little. "I wish you were here," he whispered. My chest ached. "Trust me," I said with a sad smile. "If I were really there, I'd be picking a fight with your dad on your behalf." Tristan gave a rough laugh. "I think he'd hate you."
Impossible. I'm charming.
"Yeah." Tristan smiled, softly enough to melt my heart. That's exactly the problem. We stayed on call until almost 3 in the morning, talking about everything and nothing. About music. About the terrible airport Christmas food. About how Tristan still couldn't understand why I liked sleeping in socks. Until both of us were nearly falling asleep on screen. "Lau," Tristan murmured. I love you." I smiled quietly. "I know."
No.
His eyes were slowly closing. "I mean, thank you for loving me even when I'm the hardest to love." My chest tightened. Damn. I looked at the boy on my phone screen for a long time. The one who had once stood on the railing of the 6th floor and wasn't sure whether he wanted to still be here. And now, he was smiling gently at me in the middle of a cold winter night. "I'll always choose you," I said very quietly. Tristan was silent for a moment. Then that smile appeared again. Small, but happy enough that I wanted to hold on to it forever. And for the first time in a very long time, I think both of us had finally found where we belonged.